minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Good.
You ready for do more in the future? Trap Talk podcasts?
Yes.
Man.
Only Trap Talk. Exclusive.
Yes.
Exclusive. Oh.
So stop calling us.
Rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the crop, gotta love it or not. I'm hot from the hop to the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with everybody, we do it. Everybody, we do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with
You're now tapped into the coolest reptile podcast in the world. I'm your boy, MJ. If this is your first time tapping in, what is good? Do your boy a favor. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. That's what, excuse me. That way you're on top of every single podcast I drop here on this channel. And if this is your second or third or fourth or fifth time coming through, what is good? Thanks for coming back. I appreciate you guys all your support. I do have to remind anybody out there who listens to this podcast on the other platforms, such as audio platforms, please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on all the other platforms, Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. I appreciate all the listeners. But what is good? Happy Sunday. Hope everyone's ready for a great episode. I know I am. You guys know how we get things started on this podcast for the freshest, bestest rodents delivered to your doorstep. Cold-Blooded Cafe, number one in the game, $30 flat rate shipping straight to your doorstep. Shout out to Steven, shout out to Desiree, shout out to John and Alex over at Sim Container. If you got eggs, put them in a Sim box. Less steps, less stress. If it's a Sim, it's a win all day, every day. Thank you, John and Alex. Shout out to Steven and Ashley over at Focus Cube Habitats, PVC built enclosures, based out of Texas. Thank you so much for your support, guys. I got to say, shout out to Jesse and the entire Freedom Breeder crew, number one stainless steel rack company in the game. Thank you so much, Jesse, for your support. Please head over to Freedom Breeder. Get yourself a Freedom Breeder rack. If you don't already, they're the best. Shout out to my boy, Miguel Garcia. Always evolving pythons. Always inspiring a player. That's for sure. It's my dog right here. Please go check out his Instagram. Go check out his YouTube channel. And definitely be ready to follow him on, or make sure you go follow him on Morph Market as well. And be ready for his heat that he's going to be dropping as far as ball python stuff and whatnot. But appreciate Miguel and the entire AEP family for your support. Thank you, Alan, over at Amazing Basins. Killing it with the basins. I'm telling you right now, this guy has big things in store. So please head over to Instagram, give him a follow. And I appreciate your support, Alan. Thank you so much. Gotta say shout out to Blake Stewart over at Stewart Design. If you are in this in the long run like myself, you need to invest in your brand, you know, and you got to invest with the best. And that's going to be Blake Stewart over at Stewart Design. Head over to STAidentity.com and check him out on Instagram. Appreciate your support, Blake. Shout out to Mark Bailey, Reptiles, OG, Triple OG. Head over to Morph Market, give him a follow, and make sure you buy one of his productions. His ball python productions are no joke. You guys been in the game, highly respected. Appreciate your support, Mark. Thank you so much. And then shout out to the leaders of the industry, man. Rami over at the Reptile Super Show, throwing the best show on the West Coast. Cannot wait for Pomona. which is next weekend. Cannot believe Pomona's next weekend. Who's ready for Pomona? Who's going to Pomona? Who's vending? All the above. Drop a comment. Let me know. It's going to be going down. And then shout out to the Super Bowl reptile shows, NARBC. Any NARBC you go to is popping. I love it. And that's all because of everyone who goes and attends these shows. Shout out to Bob Ashley and Brian Potter for throwing such an amazing event. Cannot wait for Arlington. Arlington's just right around the corner as well. So cannot wait, man. You guys got to go to these shows. That's how we all connect. And literally, that's how you level up in this shit. I'm telling you right now. Shout out to Phil Goss over at US ARC. US ARC is what helps us fight for our animal rights. When any of these people are coming out of left field and trying to pull some shit, this is when US ARC comes and fights for us. This is important. You got to make sure if you are keeping animals, you are supporting US ARC. Only makes sense. Go down to the link below. Become a US ARC member for as low as $5 a month. And then make sure you go subscribe to the US ARC's YouTube channel and you stay on top of current events. Shout out to US ARC. Shout out to Phil Goss. Cannot wait for the next auction. It's going to be great. And if you want to tap into what I have going on other than the podcast, if you want to see what animals I work with, what projects I work with, and I'm just very active on Instagram. So you could go follow me on Instagram. Go give me a follow. MJ Exotics Cartel with an A, not an E. And then you can also stay on top of podcast stuff by following the podcast Instagram page as well. Trap Talk with MJ Podcast. Shout out to my Twitch viewers. If you're watching me from Twitch, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And then if you'd like to support this channel more than a subscription, more than a like, a couple ways you could do that. You could actually send a super chat if you have a question for Daniel or myself and you want me to get it on the big screen. Send a super chat. Doesn't matter how much it is, and I will get that question on the big screen. We will get it popping. And then you can also send me any donations you like to my PayPal at Exotics Cartel with an A, not an E. I appreciate all donations. You guys are amazing. Seriously, I don't deserve them, but you guys like to give me donations, and I appreciate that. Last way you could support me and support the family is actually go down to the Patreon link and join the Trap Talk Patreon family. Shout out to all my Patreon members. I appreciate you guys so much. We'll be tapping in right after this podcast. We have a Trap Talk Zoom session that I do with my Patreon. So I get personal. We do a face-to-face with all the trappers and whatnot immediately after Sunday's podcast. So I cannot wait to tap in with all my Patreon members. It's going to be an awesome time to catch up with all you guys as always. And I appreciate all your support. I love you guys, man. Who's all here? Who's ready to rock and roll? I see people in the early bird ready to rock and roll. It's going to be sick. What's up, Deviant Glass? Thanks for tapping in. Trap Talk Patreon member all day, every day. Let me see. Hold on one second. Yeah, cool, man. Thanks for tapping in. I appreciate it. All right, let's see who else is here. Spectre7, what is good, homie? Thanks for tapping in. The homie Barbara J in the building. What's up, player? Thanks for tapping in. Trap Talk Patreon member all day, every day. Team Zoo Dreams. The homie Ryan High as Balls in the building. Team Zoo Dreams as well. Trap Talk Patreon member all day, every day. Royal Bama Reptiles. The homie Blake, what is good? Thanks for tapping in. Trap Talk Patreon member. Mason Johnson, what is good? Thanks for tapping in. Trap Talk Patreon member. I love it. Sunshine State Sulfurs, what is good? Thanks for tapping in. Wise Guy Reptiles, what is good? Thanks for tapping in. Alex and Sandra, what is good? Florida-born Reptiles, what is good? Trap Talk Patreon members. Team Zoo Dreams in the building. Thanks for being here. Jason, AKR, what is good? Thanks for being here. The homie Sean Perry in the building. What is good? Thanks for being here. Trap Talk Patreon member all day, every day. Genomic Labs, the homie Jason, what is good? Thanks for being here. Hope those boas are doing good for you, my man. He has some of my boa productions that I produced this year. Pretty cool that he has that. Julio Fulio, what is good, player? Thanks for tapping in. Trap Talk Patreon member. Look who's here. Holy shit. Matthew Summers, the guy with the girlfriend. I'm surprised you're here, buddy. Thanks for tapping in. Just busting balls. This is my boy right here. Please go give him a follow. Congratulations to Matthew Summers on hitting 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. What a G. Good shit. Proud of you, buddy. Shout out to Chantel. Trap Talk Patreon member all day, every day. By the way, Matthew's a big-time Trap Talk Patreon member all day, every day. Trap Talk management to the fullest. Aurelio, what is good? Thanks for tapping in. Dar S, what is good? Thanks, friend. Uncle Mike in the building. What's up, Uncle Mike? Thanks for tapping in. Serpent Eclipse Reptiles, what is good? Thanks for tapping in. And we are good to go. All right, guys. I'm not going to lie. I've been wanting this podcast to go down for quite a while. I remember bumping into Daniel. I believe it was Arlington. I can't remember. It was at some NARBC, man. I thought it was awesome because I've heard a lot of stuff that he's done, not only within the States, but out of the States. You know, he does a lot of traveling. My good buddy, you guys know Andrew Acevedo. You know, I talk about Andrew, the homie Blake, you know, all good friends of mine. Recently went on an adventure with this guy, and they came back with some stories. So this is going to be an awesome podcast. I hope you guys are ready. Buckle up tight. But here we have my boy Daniel Solis from the jungle, Diaries tapping in with us right now. What's up, Daniel?
Hey, how you doing, man?
Thanks for being here, buddy.
Hell yeah.
You're in Cali right now, right? This is where you're at right now, just to be clear.
Yeah. This is at my place. We just got back from a couple adventures and expeditions, and we're here for the rest of the month, and then we're heading out again.
You've been. I mean, from what I've seen, so I just mentioned that you just went on my buddy Andrew and Blake, obviously, who you know. I noticed they got back home, but you kept going. Like you kept going. I think you went from Peru to Costa Rica, correct?
Right. Yeah. So I had lined up those two different expeditions. So I finished with them in Peru, and then I headed to Costa Rica after that. And those guys are awesome, by the way. They're good people, and we had a lot of fun in Peru. And I don't think everything can be shared for our experience down there, but it was fun.
It doesn't need to be. Yep. Yeah, it's kind of those things where you had to be there. You know what I mean? Sorry you weren't there.
yeah, that's how it is, man. These expeditions are fun and an experience that, as much as I would like to explain them to people or show them, there's no way to do that unless you go.
Right. Now, before we kind of tap into that side of things, Daniel, I want to curious on, your up and coming with the animals in general. I mean, how much have animals been a part of your life? I mean, does this go back to you being a child, or I'm just curious?
Right. So I was born in El Salvador. It's a small country in Central America. From what I can remember, my earliest memory is of me going out in the field, in the jungles, looking for stuff. And this was from iguanas, boas, anything that I could find. And I was lucky that my family, although not all agree, they were very supportive and let me go out in the middle of the jungle, either fishing, hunting, or just herping, which I didn't know what it was at the time.
Right.
And that's how it started. And the love for animals began at that age, probably 5 to 10 years of age. Right. It progressed into what it is now. So from early on, I was always involved in animals, reptiles mostly.
And at what age did you kind of get settled here in the United States? When did that happen?
So it was around 10, 12 maybe. I actually got to New York first. I lived there for a couple of years. I moved to California right after, and I got myself a pet snake when I was when I was 15, I think. And I was hooked already. So it didn't develop from there. But also the other part of me is the entrepreneurship and just business side of things.
Right.
And I work at a pet shop, and I realized how cool it was. So from that point on, I realized that animals, it's where I wanted to work at. Sure enough, over the years, I was able to acquire and created a collection of reptiles. I started reading, I started talking to people, and started breeding. And from there on, all I've done, it's reptile related, reptile or animal related for that matter. Either retail, wholesale production in my facility. And now in the past few years, I started doing the travel and wildlife photography. But it's all tied down to reptiles.
Right. And that's why I love this, bro, because everything I do is all tied to the reptiles. Everything, the people I meet, which I love the most, Daniel, because, I don't know. I mean, I'm a very I don't want to say private person, but I don't like to go meet people. I'm not very let me go find new friends. But in this game, you don't really have a choice. Like, the animals bring you to people that just you click with, and man, I can't tell you, Andrew, and I don't know if you know, I probably obviously don't know this, but me and Andrew was like my real first friend in this industry. Like, outside of where I live, you know, and he was only, I think, 18 at the time, or he was really young, you know, and I was already 30 years old. And I'm like looking at this guy for advice, and he's helping me with all this stuff. And he's like a kid, you know what I mean? And he introduced me to everything like forest fanning and all this other stuff that basically molded my life to today, all because of the animals. So I love it, bro. I'm addicted to what we're doing.
Yeah, I think it's so we click in the community because we like pretty much the same thing. We're passionate about it. And that is enough to create relationships that last a lifetime. And that's probably why this industry has grown. And I'm talking about as a whole, not just reptiles. This includes amphibians and some other specific things in the industry. I think that's why now you see this brotherhood in reptile keepers, because it's so specific, but yet we have that in common. And that's how I'm be able to connect to people all over the world. It's something interesting because this is not just happening in the US. This is happening worldwide. And it's somewhat recent that now we're discovering this new thing, which is reptiles, and how awesome it is and how cool they are. And like you said, the relationships that you can build out of it. So definitely I can see us in a industry attached by reptiles. And that is awesome. Myself too, all the people that I met is through reptiles, it's through animals. I don't really have another social life outside this. All I've done for my entire life, it's work with animals, and that's what I keep doing. So much so that I don't see myself doing anything else. Not because I don't like it, or it's just because I don't know what else could I do. If you know, what else is there to do? I cannot go work in a restaurant or an office. I don't know anything. All I know is reptiles. So I'm here for the long run. I've been doing this for quite some time now. And we keep meeting people that are reptile related, and that is super cool.
Now, I mean, let's kind of talk about your history with the reptiles, because you've seen generations, like you've seen this reptile from hobby before social media, before it blew up and everything, right? So you know, it was a lot more scarier being invested in animals before social media because it wasn't as popular.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's a matter of fact, I was against Facebook when Facebook was becoming a thing. People were telling me, you have to get a Facebook and start advertising online on Facebook. And I'm like, no, I mean, I don't think that's a good idea. So what I used to do when I had animals to resell, I used to send a mass text message. And that's how people used to buy from me, from text messages. I know people that used to send paper lists. I got those lists too. But my era was from text messages and some emails too. There was no Facebook. It took me about a year to finally say, okay, I'm going to give this Facebook thing a try. And obviously it became a huge thing after. I mean, everybody goes through Facebook, all the social media platforms. But before we didn't have that. So it was interesting. But even then, I was still doing reptiles. And basically the way I started was with one animal, and I instantly got hooked. I thought it was awesome. Not a lot of people understood what it felt like to own a reptiles, but I did. And that, just like everybody else, it's part of the, it feels our addictive side as a human. And reptiles can become collections, and almost as a collecting stamps.
Right.
He grew from there. From one, it was like you have to have a male or a female now, maybe a pair, maybe another species. So he grew from there. I started producing animals. I started retailing them and realized that there was a market for it. At the time, there was only a couple pet shops around that were specifically selling reptiles and reptile supplies. And I saw the need for that. And that's how my career started. It was from producing animals, and then I started retailing them.
And then also supplying them with the supply needs and whatnot. So you basically got in the whole retail side of things.
Yeah. So then knowing that there was that need, I figured that a retail shop was the next step. And not long after my private warehouse where I used to breed a lot, me and my family decided to invest in a retail location, and that's how this whole thing started.
Wow.
To become a business where I was getting money out of it to pay my bills. And that was very interesting and very impressive because, as you might have experienced, most of our families that don't understand, or friends that don't understand the industry, never give it a try and don't really believe that there's a way to make money, or to be at least employed by the industry. So it was very hard at the beginning because I didn't have the support that, it's a new industry, and perhaps not everybody believed in it. I know a lot of people go through that, and to that I always say, go and do it, because you'll be surprised how you can actually make a living out of this and enjoy it.
Daniel, I have good buddies, like really people I look up to into this, that have respectable collections, productions every year, but still choose to have a 9-to-5 and just don't. They're like, I don't want to do it because they say once you cross over and you put everything into the animals, that means you don't look at the animals the same. But for me, it wasn't like that. I mean, I did it full time over a year ago, and I still cherish the animals. I love it, but it's just some people rather just be safe. You know what I mean? But I feel like they're not living the full potential of what they could possibly do with what they have.
Yeah, I agree. It has to do with their own personalities too.
Yeah,
they might be making enough money on reptiles to do it full time, but not everybody has that adventurous side and the risk at all and go for it.
I agree.
Everybody should tread lightly on this because not everybody has that drive. It doesn't mean that they're not good at what they do, but
you gotta have it.
Yeah, but that being careful around this subject, it's always a good idea too. I mean, I wouldn't suggest to just go full force and then just regret it or lose your passion for the reptiles or the animals that you're working with. So keeping that in mind is always a good thing. But it's definitely not for everybody. For me, it was a no-brainer. I felt the moment I realized that I was making a living out of this, which it was years ago, I felt that I was retired. It wasn't work for me anymore. That's it. I'm free. I'm done. I might not be making the money that other people on big companies are making, but the freedom that it gave me and how I felt it was relieving, that has no price. To me, it was retiring and doing what I love and making money out of it.
Right.
And that's it. I've achieved the dream at that point where it's my passion, I make money on it, and that's what I'm gonna keep doing.
So back when you said that, when you and your family decided to take your collection from it being private to you actually doing the forefront with the retail, what was the name that you guys decided to go with? What was the first name that you guys went with?
So at the time when I was doing the private collection, I used to call it Reptile Avenue. And and that's how I used to sell online. But I don't know why we decided on Reptile Factory at the time, and that's what we used for the retail side of things. And luckily, my brothers took that idea and run with it, and helped me. Well, just help the retail side of things. As a matter of fact, nowadays my younger brother is the one that's ahead of the company. He's involved in it 100%. I do help a lot. I do breed a lot and help behind doors and support him in every way I can. But at the moment, he's the one that's at the forefront of the shops. We currently have 4 locations, but again, he's the one that now has taken over that part of the business, and that's what allowed me to do the traveling and wildlife photography.
Right.
So the reptiles allow me to grow a business to the point where my brother took over, and then I had the time to start doing the traveling and the photography.
Wow. And so how long has it been since you kind of like held back and let him kind of do and take over? How long has that been now?
Jungle Diaries, man, when I started doing it 5 years ago, and I was still helping him out. Even as of today, I'm still doing whatever I can. If he needs any type of help, I'm still around. I'm still helping him in any logistic type of things, or just work. Whatever he needs, I'm there to support him. But I'm not doing what he does full time now, and that's what allowed me to move to another facet of this industry, which I think it's related. Because of it, now I have another opportunity on traveling to make that into a business and make it profitable. And that's all because of reptiles.
Right. And the family too. I mean, you're in a good position here. You're able to. Here's the thing, man. My biggest fear is having to put what I love in the hands of somebody who possibly might not love it as much as me. You want to know? You want to know who the best keeper I have besides myself? My wife. I swear to God, nobody else does a better job than she does, because she knows it. She knows she loves it too. You know what I'm saying? But anytime I have a friend or someone else, something always happens, bro. And it's scary to me. So for you to have this kind of, support system from a family, but not only that, bro, to have so many shops like that, that's impressive, bro. Like, that's not easy to do in California. Like, bro, like, this is crazy. Like, that's not easy to do, bro.
Yeah. Times are tough in the retail industry.
Yeah.
I can see that myself. I've been through a couple economic
crashes and shit.
Crashes and recessions already, and it's definitely scary. But man, I think I just been lucky that my family, after the initial after the beginning, right, they realized that it was a thing, and my brothers have been able to get this passion of animals. So I've been lucky that they're there, and the people that we have at the shops, they're also amazing. So I guess it all worked out to the point where these allow me to take off on another part of the industry, and now it's what I do. Jungle Diaries, it's where we travel and we do guided tours for people like you, me, that want to go see these animals in the wild. For example, Blake and Andrew.
Right.
They messaged me and they were like, okay, well, what's the next expedition? Let's tag along. Let's go. And now it's becoming almost a full-time job for me doing these expeditions.
Are you going to the same spots? Like, you have your same spots that you go to, or are you still finding new places to go to?
Yeah, it all varies. I mean, for example, the just now that we were in Peru, we headed out to a new area that I've heard there is big size anacondas in that area. And up to the past month, I still hadn't seen I still hadn't seen an anaconda in the wild, which I've been searching for years, and I just haven't been lucky. So they told me, one of my guide friends in Peru, that he has this area and he knows they're there and he's seen some big animals. So we put together an expedition to go look for anacondas, and we found them. I offered the trip for whoever wants to join. We had 6 people, and we went out, looked for anacondas in this area that it's fairly new to me, and we found them. So every trip is different. We have already logistics for most of the places, but every tour is different. Every expedition is different. Sometimes we get lost. Sometimes we, it has happened a couple times where I got lost, and I got lost with a couple of the customers, but we always made it out fine. And it all varies. For example, next month, I'm taking a group of people to Borneo, and they want to go see orangutans and king cobras. So I lined it up. I have my contacts already in Borneo, which I've been there multiple times, and we're going to make this expedition to go look for orangutans in the wild, which is a little more difficult than finding them in these sanctuaries that most people do. But I have the ability already to go see him in the wild, and that's what we're going to do next month.
So Daniel, since we're kind of talking about you being in the thickness of all this shit, the real deal jungle, man. I mean, let's talk about the humidity and the actual temperature that is the surroundings of these actual species that you're experiencing out there.
Yeah. One of the biggest things that I can, there's multiple things, and it's actually very complex, but one that comes out and it's very surprising for me is, as a keeper, I'm honest to say that I had the wrong information before I traveled. The information in the literature that we have came from people who haven't even left the States, people who just read this information from other people. And it sucks because I utilized that information and maybe they didn't mean to, but it wasn't correct. And I think the biggest surprise was the temperatures. The temperatures surrounding these animals were not accurate, not from what I was taught or what I'd read in literature. It took me to go to Indonesia, for example, and see retics in the wild and see the temperatures they live in, you know?
Right.
So this misconception was probably the biggest shock for me, finding out that perhaps we were keeping animals a little too hot. I remember seeing a lot that retics like 90 degrees. I don't think that's accurate. Not after seeing them in the wild, not after reading the temperatures in the water or in the surrounding areas. Nowadays, we can see surface temperatures, okay, for, let's say, Java in Indonesia, where most mainlands come from. And those temperatures are reading 90, 93, 95. But these temperatures can be misleading. And in these surface temperatures, we are not reading the temperatures in microclimates, under the shade, cave systems, near the water, or in areas where the temperature is just not over 90 degrees. Most of the time, I found retics in the 80s. That's a difference. That's a difference of almost 10 degrees.
One of the biggest things that I knew instantly I made mistakes on, you know, not purposely, but because that's just what I was told is, you know, the amount of food you feed a snake, right? Overfeeding is something everyone almost does, but then also how hot you keep a snake. Like a 90 hot spot never made sense to me. Like, why would you want to give that to a snake 24/7? It doesn't have that in the wild. Like,
absolutely not.
You're cooking it. Like, I don't understand it. It never made sense to me, Daniel. I never get it. And some people still do it.
Yeah, and now there's definitely more information available. Again, the social media took off, and now keeping the animal the wrong way should be a little more difficult. There's a lot of good advice out there, but I can still see it nowadays where some of these temperatures are not accurate. Right. Keeping a monitor on a basking light 24/7, not 24/7, but the basking monitors, in my experience, from what I've seen when traveling to Indonesia, they only bask for a certain amount of time. Those basking temperatures, then they hide, they go into the water. They are not basking the whole day cycle.
Right.
And again, that to me was probably the most eye-opening thing that I experienced when traveling. The temperatures were way off, way off. As a matter of fact,
go ahead. Please finish. No, finish. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, as a matter of fact, I think that part of my success in my own breeding collection was realizing certain things like the temperatures. I've been lucky enough to be consistent on producing reticulated pythons, specifically super dwarf, where I can do it every time very accurately with pretty high success rate when hatching and producing. And I think that has to do with me realizing a lot about temperatures. So yeah, I think out of all the travels, temperature has to be the thing that surprised me the most.
Can I just please, Daniel, put some respect on your super dwarf game, man? Like, you are producing some fucking heat, bro. Like, you were on a roll there for a second. I was like, oh my God, you know. And it's funny because you have all this stuff happening when you're gone too, you know what I mean? So you're just like updating people with you know, what's happening. But man, these anneries, and I gotta ask you, I mean, when did you really start taking interest to the super, like the locality specific?
When they were,
go ahead.
So the locality, in my opinion, was going to be a big thing roughly about 10 years ago. I figure that the larger retics, the mainlands that we call, require a specific keeper, that most people cannot achieve that because of the size and the requirements.
Not easy.
And I figured that at the time, dwarfing this will have a viability in the industry. And I realized that when super dwarf pures were $350, right now they're starting at $2,000 and up
minimum.
And I realized that when they were $350, I used to buy them and resell them or sell my own, whatever I produce, for about $350, $450, even $500. That's when I realized that the size, the clutch numbers will prolong the life of the super dwarf in the industry. And yeah, since then I've been collecting them, and that's probably why now I have the ability to produce this many animals, because I started a little earlier, where when they were maybe not as popular, you know.
And I mean, that's one thing. That's one thing I noticed, Daniel. I'm like, what? How's he producing this stuff? It's because you've had to have this stuff from like years back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so yeah. It put me in a really good position financially, because I believed in it. While other people sold their animals before the explosion in the super dwarf, I kept mine. For maybe the main reason was because I liked it. I thought it was cool. I thought it was cool that you can keep a retake on a smaller cage. I thought it was easier too. Easier to feed. I don't feed any rabbits to the super dwarf, only rats. So it made sense financially too. And luckily now, you know, last year, this year, the past 3 or 4 years, I was lucky. I already had a pretty solid collection before the prices increased, and I was able to produce all those animals. But also, it helped me going there and realizing the way these animals live and understand them in the wild. That helped on my end in captivity and produce what I produce now.
Well, since you just said that right now, Daniel, for anyone out there thinking that super dwarfs are bullshit, it's just a marketing scheme, and or you know, whatever the fact that you could turn any mainland into a super dwarf if you want. What do you feel about that? What are your opinions about that?
I think the retics in general will respond physically to the amount of food that they're giving. Ethically, an animal that's supposed to be large can be kept small and even live a longer life. I just don't know how ethical that is. And that's almost a personal thing. I don't think mainlands are for everybody. I think it's for very advanced and keepers. Suggesting that those can be kept small, I think it goes along the lines of animal abuse. However, this population of retics in these specific islands seem to be staying smaller than mainlands, which is what we call super dwarf. It seems to be genetic, where either the amount of food they're able to acquire or external pressures like predation have kept these animals from growing these big sizes. And here's an example of that. In Krakatoa, they have no other predator other than these large water monitors that live there. Nobody knows much about them, but for whatever freaking reason, these monitors are growing large. And I mean 7 feet, fairly common. I know they can do that in other islands, but here they're beefier bigger and just mean. Mean as in aggression for feeding.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of the reason why the super dwarf are staying that size in these islands is because larger animals are not able to hide properly in the crevices in these caves,
Mm-hmm.
and they're being predated by these water monitors. So that the animals that are small, that can fit in little holes in this cave system that are massive in the island,
Right.
get to live, reproduce, and pass on their genes. Also, it might have to do with the ability with the food items. There's not really large prey items in the islands.
Right.
These animals are feeding on bats, and bats mostly, and there's squirrels too. So I think all that combined has created these genetically different animals that are staying small. So saying that you can make a mainland, which can grow big,
right,
eventually into something small, I don't know. I don't think I can agree with that.
It's like, I don't know, this might be off, but it's like I could turn my house cat into a lion. It's like, you can't do that. You know what I mean? It's like that. I mean, there's so many different levels of cats or cat species, you know, like, and like I said, I could be way off on that. I'm just saying, I'm giving an example, but it's what you said. It's where these animals, you know, reside from, where they originate from, the amount of food they have. It could lead to so many different things.
And this is over hundreds of years also. This is over hundreds of years.
Right.
So it's not something that in a couple of generations you could, you know, as humans, we're used to manipulating DNA. It's just how it is.
Right.
Our pets, our livestock. But in this case, I think I think we might be too. Yeah, I think we don't have the ability to do so on these animals. Saying that you can keep a mainland small, or you know. Yeah, I don't think it's a possibility. You can do it outcrossing it if you use a super dwarf, which I believe it's going to become a different subspecies eventually. Maybe if you go that route, but at that point it's a hybrid, which is fine if he helps future retail keepers to keep their animals in better conditions and to be able to handle them, since they're not going to be 15-foot plus. I'm okay with that. I think I'm hoping for that, actually.
That's
hoping
a savior.
That the super dwarfs will save the mainland industry. You can still transfer those cool colors and patterns into super dwarfs,
smaller ones,
and produce something more manageable for new keepers. I only see this as going well for super dwarf and mainlands.
I agree. I have to ask you this. You know, you're talking about, you know, peers going for like 300, 350 back in your day, right? And you see how much they are now. What is that? How do you like the way that's leading as far as pricing goes with these? Do you like that it increases, or do you feel like, you know, that could lead into a problem if the prices keep going up on super dwarfs?
I think they're at a plateau now. There is a lot of breeders or up to breeder size animals in the industry. So that's going to plateau. And also, it is good because financially we'll weed out some of the people who will just see this. It can be a complex subject. For some people, the price is beneficial, okay? Especially breeders that have invested in it early and now are profiting from the markup. But for the regular keeper, perhaps not a good idea because it can be sometimes a little too expensive. Honestly, I think that they're at a plateau now. They're more accessible than before. Not long ago, only a couple of people had pure clutches. Now I see a few more, which is awesome because, again, this will help the mainland industry. The retics are growing. We say mainland, but they're still from islands. It's just a nickname. From retics that are still growing 15 feet plus. So the availability now will help two industry, the super dwarf and mainlands. But yeah, I think the price right now has plateaued. I think it's awesome because more people can afford them. More people can have them as pets. And we're definitely moving to where there is more options. And that means that more people, more regular keepers can have them as pets. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you have so many people who come across a mainland not knowing what they're going to get into, right? And then it grows into something that is like, holy shit. So if we could somehow prevent that to where it's more likely a snake a lot smaller that they're getting, I feel like that's kind of, like you said, that's going to save the retic industry as a whole.
It's a win-win situation for everybody, for the keeper.
I agree.
And for the breeders.
Yep.
They will still be able to sell animals, knowing that they're more manageable for the future customers, knowing that the customer eventually is not going to give up this animal to a shelter, let it out or let it loose, or simply just let it die, which we've seen, and it's sad. So I think now this turn of events, it's going to be beneficial for everybody, and that's thanks to Super Dwarf. So I'm happy to be part of it. I'm happy that that's where we're heading, because responsible breeders make responsible keepers.
I like that. Imagine this. Imagine dogs not only being really big. Like, imagine if you could only get big dogs. That would be difficult. Right. Like, not everyone is meant for big dogs, but everybody loves dogs. You know what I'm saying? But like, you have small dog owners, medium, and then you have the massive ones, you know, and if we could provide options, you know, because everyone needs to find out where their place is. But also, you also admit some people just should not even own a Super Dwarf or tick either. It's even.
Some people shouldn't own. I think some people shouldn't own reptiles. Yeah, in general. Just
Amen.
If you haven't seen a case of a leopard gecko with MBD or lighting issues, we've seen it. We've seen bearded dragons, which is probably the most basic animal to keep. Bearded dragons and leopard geckos and ball pythons.
Ball pythons, yeah.
Horrible stories where they're malnourished, kept wrongly. So yeah, no, it's not for everybody. But this comes back to the breeders too, where we should take responsibility and help and advise these future keepers.
Yes.
Just selling for the pure profit of buying low, selling high. That I don't think that's ethical either. But some of the responsibility comes from us, and we should take it. We should take that responsibility and do something about it. At least on my end, I try to be helpful as much as I can. Offer what I learn and what I find out over my years in the industry, but not everybody's doing that. So, you know, again, not everybody should own reptiles in general, and not just big snakes, just simple things.
Right, yeah, I feel like it's so true, man. You know, because you have people, you know, other than the mainlands, you have, you know, the venomous keepers that tend to make mistakes that have a huge effect on all of us, right? But I feel like it's not about you shouldn't owning a venomous. It's not about you should not owning a mainland. I feel like you shouldn't own a reptile, period. You know what I mean? So some people are just neglectors. Like, they don't know that this is something you need to fucking pay attention to. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know, that was a really good call out from you. Before we get off this topic real quick, I have to ask you, breeding mainlands, breeding super dwarfs, the same, or is one easier than the other in your opinion?
Unfortunately, one is easier than the other, and mainlands are fairly easy to produce. That's the problem of overproduction. That's the problem that we see now, where the industry as a whole, it's taking a hit on production. Some people will argue, oh, I still sell my animals. Right, you still do. Doesn't mean that it's profitable for everybody. Everybody has their own overhead bills. Some people own their houses. Some people have a good job. So they don't mind if they wholesale their animals. For them, they still sell them, but it doesn't apply for everybody. So in my experience over the years, I've seen an overproduction of reticulated pythons. And I'll be the first one to admit that I produce them too, that I produce hundreds of them to better. At the time, I didn't know better. And I thought mass production was the goal, you know, and until I started traveling and seeing conditions in the wild, I realized that perhaps what I was doing is wrong, or just to the point where it's not ethical. Producing large amount of mainlands without vetting potential customers and just selling them indiscriminately and just profiting from that. So yeah, it's something very hard to admit that I was doing, but I'm going to be the first one to say that I try to change, and and be more selective and to help potential customers.
I mean, without you kind of telling too much, you don't have to on this, but I mean, what do you think really happens to people who do all these productions with mainlands each year and have all these animals that they just sit on? You know what I mean? Like, it has to come.
Unfortunately, it's nothing. It's nothing nice. It's nothing good. It's nothing positive about it. I've been in the industry long enough that I've seen and heard all, and it's probably what made me change my breeding program, because I saw the desperation of breeders calling me and telling me they need to dump their animals. In working in the retail industry, I saw the amount of animals being dumped when they're just too big. And perhaps a lot of the older people will understand what I'm talking about, knowing that those collections just died. We saw that multiple times in the retail industry, more than any other industry, where entire collections were just gave up on because the cost of keeping them was too much and they were simply not selling as they thought they would. That's a very complex topic and somewhat controversial, but I saw a lot of it that made me change, at least for what I believe now it's for the better in my breeding program.
So if you had a good friend of yours asking you to get into these locality specific retics or these super dwarf retics, how would you advise him going about buying one through somebody other than yourself, obviously, right? But what's the way somebody could actually be safe about going and getting a real super dwarf retic?
Yeah, well, fortunately now people have started paying a lot of attention to bloodlines, tracking down these animals to either a reputable breeder or good stock. That's available now through simple questions like who produced it, how big were the parents. Super dwarfs can be very variable. I have some super dwarfs that are pures that are close to 10 feet. So that's still a big animal, but still not big. For a female. 10 feet versus a 15-footer, it's a huge difference. So I have animals that are pures that are 10 feet, and I have animals that are pure that are 6 feet. So finding out, asking questions, even if you think you're being annoying, it's better to ask and not be surprised. Pictures, lineage on who produced it, that's all very good information that's now available. Also, I haven't seen all the videos, but I know Garrett has very good information on YouTube about things to look for. And also there's groups online on Facebook that will help anybody out looking for this for super dwarf and what to look for. But yeah, simple questions like how big were the parents? How old were the parents at that size? Because retics can keep growing over a period of time. So all that's very good information. I try to provide that when I sell my animals. But yeah, you have to understand that even in super dwarf, there's variations. And it could be because overfeeding or just genetic variations that some animals grow bigger.
Now, are you somebody that likes to start your super dwarf babies right off rats, or do you start them off hoppers? No. What do you like to start them off on?
It seems that everybody has their own way of doing things. I'm not advocating for this. This is the best explanation I can come up with. Visiting and knowing their natural behavior in the wild. Mm-hmm. The first year I do quails and mice. I don't do rats until the second year.
Dude, listen. Okay, shout to Andrew, shout to Eric Lee. But I had my first super dwarf clutch this year, and I had a couple of them were just didn't want nothing to do with a rodent, you know. And I was asking them, you know, and they're like, well, you know, wait to this point, then you have to assist feed them. And I was like, I have some quail in the freezer. Let me just see. Let me just see if they have quail. Dude, they went ballistic. Like they were just like, I was like, holy shit. And then
so they will go after quails. And there is a population of mice in Kalatoa, but I don't think it's as prolific as the quails. I saw more quails than mice. So I think it's small birds and mice. Also, when they're a little bigger, I know they go after bats. As a matter of fact, I'm a believer that based on what I saw, the most adults in Kalatoa are eating bats only.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious then with your adults, you know, even like the smaller ones, or do you even have them on quail or chickens, or do you have them on like
chicks. I go do chicks, but honestly, for me, it's easier to do rats. So I do rats, but perhaps not as often. But as babies, I only do mice, quails, chicks.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay,
yeah,
now I have
working pretty well. I know people might have different opinions on it, and I'm not saying that I have the correct one, but based on my observations, I believe that this is the best way to not push, not create fat deposits on animals, because fat deposits are not created over a year when they're adults. Those fat deposits are created since they're babies. Since they're born.
Oh,
so if you see some animals that have all these fat deposits, you think it was done over a month, and it's not the case. It's over a period of time. So linear animals seem to be doing much better, and I think that's what I'm gonna keep going for now until something
happens.
Somebody presents a
better
more
solution,
credible and better option. Then I'm willing to listen. I'm not saying that I have the ultimate answer.
You know, but coming from somebody like you who's been in the wild, you know, it's gonna be hard to kind of switch what you feel is right at this point, because you've been there. You already we're so misled here in this country. Like, it's ridiculous, you know. And I can tell you right now, nothing against, like I said, Andrew and Eric Lee, but they would, you know, they technically resort to assist feeding without even offering a quail. And I don't understand, why don't we just go straight to quails? Like, why don't we just, you know, that should be more of a, and dude, even with ball pythons, I even had ball pythons that I had two earlier this year that took quail because they wouldn't want to eat. And you know, I don't know, like another thing, Daniel, what's one of the hardest things to establish once it's born? And that's a green tree python, right? But because what are we trying to feed a green tree python? A pinky. Like, it's never gonna win.
Pinky mice, man.
Never, bro. They're eating little lizards.
Lizard that's up in the canopy. So even super dwarfs are eating lizards too. They're eating a type of gecko. Yeah. So but this is not talking bad about other breeders.
No, not at all.
This is all the information that we didn't have, because I didn't have that either. So it's not that they're being mean or being willingly wrong or just trying to give wrong information. Sometimes we don't have that. And this is how we tie everything back to Jungle Diaries. By me able to travel, able to take people to the field, and they can see what's going on, we better we change our way of keeping for the better of the animal. And that's how the whole thing ties together. That's why I still consider what I do for Jungle Diaries part of the industry, because I provide new information and accurate information. And you know who else? And he has a great channel, and everybody should be looking what he does, is Dave Kaufman. He goes out there and measures and lets you see how certain animals are in the wild. And you can take whatever you want from there and better keep your animals in captivity. I see that as a win-win situation.
Yeah, shout out to Dave Kaufman, man. You know, like I said, people don't understand, like, yeah, it is passion, but still the sacrifices that are done going out there, putting yourself out there in some fucking weird, really sketchy positions sometimes. Really, like, you know what I mean? And basically putting your life on the line for this, you know, and people kind of oversee that. And I'm just like, mad respect to not only, you know, to yourself, but Dave Kaufman, anyone out there putting their life, just so we could get real information, man. We need real lifetime information, Daniel, not this shit out of a book. You know what I mean? Like,
it's outdated and it's not all accurate, unfortunately. And nothing, again, not talking bad about these people who try to help the industry, but information is exponential and it changes. There's more to it than just what we read 10 years ago. So back again, this is how I tie together what I do for Jungle Diaries. Example is seeing the anaconda in the wild versus what we keep them in captivity is a big chop. And I know Blake was with me when we were talking about it, how we can do different things to improve the way we keep them in captivity. One thing is having an animal that lives and reproduces but perhaps it's not thriving to the best of their abilities. And by being out in the field, you can see that. So I'm happy that I'm doing this now, and I hope that if I help a little bit in better keeping animals in captivity, that's it. I'm done. I did my job, and I feel like it's a sense of accomplishment, providing this information to people, or even better yet, helping them to get to the areas where the animals are in the wild, right? Whatever animals they keep. So I'm happy that I'm doing it, and that's what I keep doing.
Obviously it creates some sort of a fire that I could tell that I could feel it right from how you're saying it, man, because I could tell you how Andrew felt when he came back. It's like he wanted to downsize. Like he came back telling me how he wants to downsize, and like he wants to be out there. He wants to live there. He wants to move.
Unfortunately, there's consequences to seeing animals in the wild. And I'm not advocating to not keeping reptiles as pets.
Right.
But there was some realizations that I went through that really hurt me and made me feel bad, because I wasn't providing what these animals need to live to the fullest. Yes, you can keep animals in smaller cages and they will live for a long time. I just don't think, in my experience, that's all correct. Even if they can live for many years, there's something to see a retic in the wild and move in the wild versus in a cage. And that can be so complicated, because I work in the retail industry. That's what I do most of,
Crazy.
So hearing that from somebody that sells reptiles to the public, it's very difficult. And I have to be honest about it. And I have to not be hypocritical, because I'm selling reptiles, but yet I'm talking shit. Well, sorry.
No, you could do it. I cuss all the time. You're in a safe place. You could cuss. You're good.
all right.
You're okay.
But I'm talking not bad, but I'm telling people that perhaps not keeping this large amount of animals, or these large animals in smaller cages, it's a good idea. And it's a realization that unless you travel, see what we see, you won't understand. So I will never be vocal to the point where I'm telling other keepers, like let's say retail keepers, maybe you shouldn't breed that many animals. Maybe you shouldn't have that many animals. I can't, because I did it, because I work in the industry, because I'm a retail guy. And it's hard, man. It's hard because I'm in a crossroad where the best I can do is provide information from my travels and hope that people take that and improve the way they're keeping. I see a big movement. I see a big movement where now cages are bioactives, where cages have more enrichment, which perhaps it can be argued that not all reptiles need enrichment, but it doesn't hurt. If it doesn't hurt, then go for it. So it's a tricky subject, and something that I don't want to create this. I don't want to put anybody against anybody, man. And I believe that everybody has the right to keep animals. It's part of the industry, but definitely seeing them in the wild makes you change your perspective, and it really messes up with your head. At least in my case, did it. And I know, talking to Andrew and Blake, I think they had a glimpse of it, and they understood me better when I was telling them that I need to downsize, that I perhaps don't have to produce this many animals,
right,
and still be profitable and still do things correctly. But man, that's a whole nother subject that can be very complex, and we can spend hours on it. But yeah, man, I experienced it, and it's very difficult to accept it, that we need to sometimes look at ourselves and be better keepers. And hopefully, I think it's happening, though. I think people are definitely improving the way they keep animals. And in social media, like your podcast does it. You get good people that are very smart and good keepers in here, reproducing and saying good information out to the public. So, all this social media stuff works very well. And hopefully you keep doing what you do and keep getting people that have very good information on. And by the way, since I'm on that subject, you know, old school people like Dan Collette or Dan from TSK from the Snake Keepers, people are super smart. The guys over at Vida Preciosa, the BPI people like that have proper studies in the matter, can come in and share a lot of good information. You know, I would suggest that to have people like that can help us as keepers improve our way of keeping animals.
Cool. That's not an easy one, but I'm gonna get her on the show. Don't worry, it's gonna happen, man. She's her and Dan are just somebody that are just so legendary in what we get to do today. And I mean, hopefully, knock on wood, I can make it happen. But I'm glad you mentioned those names, because those are names that need to be mentioned more. That's for sure.
I agree.
Now I have to ask you this, man. I mean, one thing, Daniel, that obviously I'm hearing from you is you wanting to evolve. Like, I see that when you notice a change that needs to be done, you want to do it and you do it. But how frustrating is it to have people with not wanting that, without that same intention, meaning having all these produced retics that are basically dying in their collection, being overflown? I mean, because that's the biggest thing, is like, it's like you can't be a hypocrite, right? But at some point, something has to give, you know? Like, do you just disassociate yourself from somebody like that? I mean, I'm sure you had to over time. I mean, what do you do in that case?
So I believe that this is where the customer comes into place. The customer is what drives the production and the demand on animals. Responsible customers will look into responsible breeders and support responsible breeders. So changing breeders' mind, it's very difficult because everybody is right as a breeder, right? But changing the mind of customers is what's going to change the industry as a whole. So providing and advertising and trying to share this information to potential customers is the key to change how breeders conduct themselves. If the customers start demanding better care for their animals, where the animals come from, proper information, lineage, and just expect more from breeders, that's going to change the way breeders are now, because the demand will drop if they don't change based on the customer's demands. So I think it works as a whole. Breeders also have to look inside and realize what they're doing wrong, or at least accept that there's other ways to do things. But I think the say here is by the customers. If a customer doesn't want to buy from me and I can't sell the animals, it's going to force me to shut down or adjust. So I think customers now have the ability to change the course of action on breeders.
I agree. I feel like the customers have a lot more power than they think they have.
Right, that's what I was looking for. They have the power to change the industry. The customer does. It's just supply and demand. Right. You know, and hopefully, again, podcasts like this can coach these new customers or new people that want to be in the industry, or reptile keepers, to be better customers, so that way we can change where we get the animals from. We decide that. So it's a good thing that you're doing this type of podcast. I think it's very beneficial for the industry.
Respect. I have to ask you this, Daniel. You know, this is a very addicting industry, meaning once you get in it, you know, you start to see what else is available. You know, it all started with ball pythons with me, and now I don't want to say I have everything, but I have a lot. Yeah. You know, that could go bad too. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people kind of get overwhelmed right off the bat, you know, and I don't know, from you growing up, did you kind of just get into everything right off the bat, or did you work your way up into everything?
It seems that that's the course of action. It seems that that's how it is. I've seen it almost 100% of the time, where we go in and we do everything because it's cool. It takes some time to adjust and be good at one thing. So it starts as a chaos where it's everything, but then you become, it's like a specialty. And once you get to that point, you do better. Here's an example. I did have a lot of other animals, and I was good at producing a lot of animals, from colubrids. I had a massive collection of Mexican black king snakes at one point, before they were expensive. I sold it to somebody, but focusing on one thing got me to be very good at it, like the super dwarfs. So I had these other animals, but the amount that I was spending in different parts of the collection didn't let me become good and an expert at one thing. So it's something that everybody will figure out on their own. Having less is more. And it's something that somebody taught me years ago, where he told me that he can produce more having less animals. And I, as a younger, Daniel, could not figure that out. I was like, how are you producing more having less animals? It makes no sense.
Quality.
Right? And it's the quality. He was getting 100% clutch, 100% hatch rate on all his clutches and production. Every female he decided to breed will breed. While I was getting slugs and I was blaming the animal. Oh, she's, you hear that all the time. She's slug out. Perhaps the conditions on the way you keep them were inappropriate, and she did slug out because of you. So getting to the point where you're an expert at what you do specifically, it's good because you will be successful. I know people who are successful with large collection of animals that are different animals, but it's not everybody. I think when I started producing more consistently and accurately was when I reduced the amount of animals I had. And now I can say that, and I understand it now. Less is more, and I'm producing more now than before when I had double the amount of animals. Figure that out.
But it also comes with maturity. You got, some people don't get that right away. And until they put themselves in that position where they have all these animals and they're like, okay, this is not what I expected.
Yeah. So perhaps it's part of us, the older people, to maybe pass along this message where quality, it's better than quantity. And you can still reach the same numbers with less. Okay. So maybe it's part of us, the older generation, to start commenting on this matter and advising new up and comers that these massive collections sometimes are not all what it seems to be. Mm-hmm. And also the care of the animal improves. Since I reduce the amount of animals I have, I can provide better caging, more care, and I believe my animals are in better condition because of it, versus when I had hundreds. Right. So, it's something that hopefully everybody gets to experience at one point, but definitely, I think less is more.
Now, let's kind of get into the details of going on an excursion with Jungle Diaries here, okay? The do's and don'ts. Let's talk about the do's and don'ts, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Well, actually, my whole thing was to talk about travel and how over the years I learned a few things on how to travel and offset the cost of travel. But we got sidetracked a little bit, I think.
Let's talk about it. No, we're perfect. Let's get into it.
Okay, so back into the traveling part of the podcast, I guess. So traveling can be costly. I'm pretty sure everybody knows that by now. Especially lately, with the cost of airfare has gone up due to gas prices.
Way up. Jesus.
Yeah. So I found out ways to offset that cost. A lot of people call it travel for free. The reality is traveling for free doesn't exist. Free things are not free. There's a value that has to exchange for you to get something for free. So at that point, it's not free. Free, I think it's just an idea, but it doesn't work, especially in a world that's capitalist.
Yeah.
So there's ways to offset the cost of travel, and I'm happy to share them. I think one of the big things, and I even made some notes, nowadays, the industry has cut down the middleman. You can now directly do business with owners on the other side. What I mean by that is, before you had to go through a travel agency to find a hotel, a lodge, or a room so you can go stay if you travel to another country, or even if you travel out of state. Now The number one thing that I recommend is check Airbnb. You are cutting down the middleman. Even if you're still paying a fee to the website, it's not the same if you were paying to a travel agency. You can talk directly to the owners and get a better deal than ever before.
100%.
Keep Airbnb in mind. Now, taxis are being cut down from the equation where you have Uber. A lot of these countries where I travel to have Uber. Here's an example. Peru has Uber, and the cost for a taxi ride from the hotel I was staying at to the airport was about $30. Uber was $12. So these savings can offset the cost of travel that otherwise you would have to pay if you go through a travel agency. So the number one thing I would suggest is Airbnb and Uber. Those two things will change and save you a lot of money and offset the cost of travel. Another thing, it's something that I call product features or product placement. Okay, if you are traveling to these other countries, okay, let's say you go to a remote area in the Amazon, you have a value in you for traveling there, and that's your presence, and that's what you can give to a company like the brand of shirts that I wear. They actually give me free samples or free shirts if I take a picture with the brand out in the Amazon. And that's what I mean by product placement. You can reach out to multiple companies out there. Everything. This is just, you have to get creative and find out who, right? But you can have a hook, a tool, and take it to these destinations, and perhaps they'll give you an incentive cash-wise or free product. Same with the shirts, sunblock, and all these line of products that cater to travelers, that cater to hikers and people who travel the world. It's very easy to find advertisement deals where people actually will pay you or buy you an airplane ticket to go there and promote their brand. This is advertisement. This can be anything. When I say product, could be ideas. Advertisement, product placement, it's something to look into because it's one of the ways to offset costs. And I've done it multiple times where I have gone to expeditions specifically to try out a new product. And sometimes that pays for most of it or part of it. And that's how I can travel a lot. But I use a combination of different things to make it easier on me to pay for these trips. And a lot of people will say, oh, you just have the money from your other business to travel. And that's not the case. I offset the cost by doing this extra work, which is not really that difficult.
Right.
The other thing that I do, because I'm good at it, and it's what I like, it's photography. Yeah. Every time I travel, I'm able to produce good photos that I can then resell, that I can then offer to brands that use them for their products, for packaging, which I've done multiple times. As a matter of fact, I know you might recognize a few pictures if you really pay attention to certain brands. I just can't say the brands, but their pictures are my pictures that I've taken in the wild, and they use it for product, and they have compensated me for that, and that offsets the cost of my travel expenses.
Can we really kind of look at some of your photos? Because I fucking love it, man. I mean, these photos are really awesome, Daniel. I mean, I gotta admit, like, you know, this stuff right here, these are really tiny bats in a leaf. I'm assuming, right?
Yes.
That is so freaking neat, man. And I don't know, I gotta say, this is probably the biggest gift I feel like you going out on this these excursions or having these moments right here.
Yeah, I agree. And this is what I do, and this is what I like, but it doesn't mean that anybody else has to do the same thing. I know people who have gone out to do similar things like sketches, drawings, blogging, and storytellers that have made money from going to these trips by doing extra curriculum activities and extra work, and then they come back and sell it. And to that point, there's another one too that I would love to share. There is something that I call buy low, sell high. When you travel these areas, you have the ability to buy local art, local things that have a bigger value here in the States. And I know people who have full front stores from trinkets that they find in other countries.
Wow.
They sell them on Etsy and on eBay. In one trip, you should be able to buy enough product and resell it here in the States to fund a full trip, the next trip. And I've done it multiple times. Whenever I go, I buy either art. You know, you have to have somewhat of a business idea, right? But
you have to be an asset. You have to be an asset to this. You have to be able to bring something to the table, and by doing that, you could actually have everything get paid for you.
Exactly. Yeah, I had a picture from they wanted to use it in an encyclopedia. I wasn't selling it. They just contacted me.
Wow,
and
look at this.
pay me some money for it, and you know that helps offsets the cost of traveling. So it's something good that I love to share because that gives the ability to people to do more traveling. And to me, traveling changes perspective. It changes the way you see animals, and it helps to bring awareness. So that's why I always suggest do some travel, find ways to offset the cost, and even get paid while you travel.
I mean, at the end of the day, Daniel, you're explaining something that somebody could actually do for a living. If they were that good at it, if you're really get that good at this, you could turn this into a career easily. Like this could be a whole this could be a whole career. And some people don't even know that they're meant for it yet. You know what I'm saying? But Daniel, one thing I my heart hurts for people who literally hate their day job. Like they wake up, they're depressed. They fucking have to go do something. They have to go work with people that are mean to them. Like whatever the case is, they hate their fucking day job. And bro, what's the biggest killer nowadays? Stress. People die because they stress out. And dude, the animals, man, like if you could somehow find some way, and if you really love these animals, you just never know. You got to think outside the box. I think this is the only time I've seen a lifestyle that you could create with these animals that does not involve breeding. It has nothing to do with you selling the snake, which is scary, bro. And Daniel, do you want to know why I go so hard on this podcast? I do 4 shows a week because I don't want to rely on my snakes for money no more. I don't. It's scary. I don't want to do that.
Yes. You got creative and created a whole new side of the industry that's still very much related to breeding, but a new side of an industry that could be very profitable for people. Right. Sometimes you just gotta stop, be creative, maybe do a little psychedelics. I'm just kidding.
No, he's not kidding. He's not kidding. Do it. Do it. Open your mind, motherfuckers.
But get creative and find ways to still work in the industry, but perhaps change the breeding aspect of it. Not because it's bad. I think captive breeding, it's what we all need anyways, besides importation of wild-caught animals. But for somebody that wants to change, there's definitely options. And travel, it's one of them. The podcast, it's another one. I mean, there's multiple things. You just gotta stop, be creative, think about the possibilities, and don't be scared. We already keep animals, man. That itself, it's a scary situation for some people. We're already there. That's probably why we get along so well. We already know what it's like to have animals. So looking into something different, it's not a bad idea. Change, sometimes it's awesome. It brings opportunities. So never doubt yourself and look into change. Change, it's awesome. And it gives you tons of new opportunities. I know people in this country are very stressed. And I know some more because I have traveled to different countries. Look, man, I have I always say this. I think the United States is the greatest country in the world by far. And I have traveled to multiples. However, it's very stressful. And if you can't handle that, you might consider changing your behavior, your patterns, your work ethic.
Something.
Because it can hurt and it can bring people down fairly quickly. You know, from suicide thoughts to other stressful situations. So perhaps looking outside the box could be the answer. Just don't be scared about it. And that brings me back to Jungle Diaries. All these years I've done it. We've done it where it's not real a business, it's more of a hobby. We don't even have a website, but we're to the point that we want to create a website and make it more official where people can sign up, find the dates of the expeditions, sign up and come along with us. So hopefully for next year, we have that available, and hopefully people can start coming with us and realizing that there's a lot more to it. People that need just to get away for a little bit, people that need information for the reptiles that they keep, which I've done multiple times. I've taken people to expeditions to look for the animals and the conditions of the animals they keep. So I want to offer that and give the ability to keepers, to regular people, to come outside the box, come outside the comfort zone, come with me and experience nature, experience the animals that we already keep in captivity, but in the wild, and hopefully experience something new. Hopefully get creative thoughts, create creative ideas, and think of potentially a new way of life, a new way of seeing things. And that has been my goal for Jungle Diaries.
I think at the end of the day, man, if people love themselves more, the stress wouldn't be such a big thing. You know, a lot of people just, they don't like themselves. And what sucks about that, Daniel, is it's hard to take care of anyone else or love other people when you're not really loving yourself. You know, and somebody told me this a long time ago, and I never really understood that, but because I was just so toxic, you know what I mean? And I like my wife, my dad, my grandma and grandpa, I want to make them happy, but like, I didn't give a fuck about making myself happy. Like I only cared about making other people happy. And if you're not doing anything like thinking outside the box to make yourself happy, people don't understand. If they actually were loving themselves, it makes the people around you more like enjoyable for them to be around you. You know what I'm saying? I mean, who wants to be around? Yeah. Who wants to be around somebody who's miserable? You know what I mean? And you know, the sad truth about Americans is a lot of them are good at hiding being miserable. Like they're able to just they keep it in, bro, and they're fake. You know, yeah, it's terrible. I can't do that. I can't do that. Yeah, bro.
Yeah, and that's part of the human. Yeah, that is. I think it's part of us humans. Sometimes we can hide very well emotions. Yeah. So the stress situation in this country, it's complex. I mean, just whatever's happening in other countries, wars, conflicts. Just now, I saw the news between Israel and the Gaza Strip, the Palestine-Israel conflict. That stresses me out.
Right.
I have no family on either side, but I believe in peace. I don't believe in war, and it stresses me out. That's another type of stress. And the news nowadays are great at touching that.
Oh,
and
triggering.
And they're good at selling stressful news that sell and sensationalizing news for better profits. And we see that a lot. Like, you know, but see, I think that traveling
yeah, you're good.
A lot of that problem, and that's why I'm so I'm always so vocal about it, because it did help me a lot myself. It helped me a lot to realize where I was mentally and help me find out what I wanted to do. And I'm pretty sure that, you know, being involved in wildlife, it's what I'm going to end up doing for the rest of my life.
I mean, I think another big piece of mine that Andrew and Blake came home with was just like shutting out from the world, like just basically like going from seeing everything all over the place on the news, your phone, blah, 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 blah. And then boom, you're fucking out. Like now it's like no more civilization. It's like, I can only imagine the peace of mind you get when that happens.
A time with yourself. You will be surprised how little time you give yourself because of our phones and Facebook and and all these other news. You know, once you have time to yourself, you realize a lot of things about yourself, and it helps you improve. And it has helped me, and I've seen positive changes from the people that I have taken to these expeditions. I've seen positive change, changing mentalities in ways that are more than one, where now they realize there is a world out there. They're more careful on what they do, the decisions they make, and they're now starting to see that perhaps the stressful life that we live here in the States can be changed. And again, that's awesome. That's awesome to hear.
Now, for anyone out there thinking, what's the agenda like or schedule like for these jungle adventures that you plan? I mean, how thought out throughout the year do you plan these? Like, are you like months down there? Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm getting ready to release the dates for next year's calendar. Unfortunately, for this year, I'm going to stay put for the rest of the year. I only have one trip. It's to Borneo. We're going to go see orangutans and king cobras. That trip, it's already full. I'm leaving next month. I'm going to be out there for a couple weeks. But for next year, starting in January, we have a full agenda. So roughly to give you an idea what we got going on, in January, it's going to be Costa Rica and Peru. Okay. In May, we have the Galapagos Islands, which is fucking amazing.
Whoa.
So I'm going to take a group of people there to the Galapagos Islands. In March or April, I'm taking a group of people to the Amazon in Yasuni. It's a national park in Ecuador. It's a little different that I often don't like to advertise too much, but I will say it because it might be of interest to the right people. And this one I call Herping with the Gods, which is an expedition where we herp and we do all the wildlife that we normally do. But there is a time to do a ayahuasca ceremony with a really remote tribe that doesn't do it for profit. So it's a very, very remote area, and the experience of doing it there, it's somewhat interesting. So I'm going to do that tour. And again, something that I don't like to advertise too much, but to the right people, that might be of importance. So there will be a tour in April, I believe. I have to finalize the dates, where it is us looking for animals and doing a ritual.
Spiritual thing.
A spiritual ritual for ayahuasca.
Spiritual journey for sure.
For some people, it was definitely something to think about. So that's going to happen, I think, in April. June, July, we're heading back to Colombia, which is amazing, by the way. Just the news don't help Colombia at all. But being there multiple times, you know. So Colombia, we're going to go out there again. By the end of the year, we usually do the peninsula of Yucatan in Mexico, and we do Indonesia. So by the end of the year, October, September, November, we usually go back to Indonesia. The things that are on the works that it's not going to be, that I'm working on is summits. So I want to do a tour, take people to summit certain mountains like Kilimanjaro, Cotopaxi in Ecuador, and some other mountains. So it's a little less reptiles, but more adventurous for rock climbers and people who like to hike. So that's on the works. And some very, very, very exciting that I'm working on that I think is going to surpass almost everything that I've done, because it has implications nationwide and even worldwide, is it's going to Iran. Specifically, we'll look for the Pseudocerastes uranoides, or the spider-tailed viper. Wow. So I'm working on that. I'm this close of finalizing an itinerary for me to go to Iran as a U.S. citizen. And that's huge. That has some huge implications for the entire nation. If I'm successful in that point, I'm able to take a team from the U.S. to Iran to go look for that spider with visas, with approved visas, with a proper itinerary, and start, hopefully, a positive relationship between countries that have been in conflicts before.
For years.
So
whole
I'm
life.
really hoping for that. I wasn't going to say anything about it, but I'm really excited. That's probably my top thing. And I've seen over the years in my travels new species. As a matter of fact, not long ago, there was a new species described from an animal that I was the first one to photograph. So there's exciting things that I've done, but this one tops everything that I've done, and hopefully I can make it happen. If so, hopefully next year there will be a group of photographers from the U.S. going to Iran on a tourist visa and go look for these animals in a country that, by the way, people do not reflect our governments. Our governments have a mind of their own. If you talk to people around the world, most of them are friendly. Most of them have something in common with us, and we're all humans. Sometimes the policies of our governments are not.
They mix it
don't
up.
go along with what we believe in.
Right.
And unfortunately, Iran is in that position right now. The people are amazing. It's just the news and governments don't agree with each other.
Well, I mean, but like you said, how exciting for you to be a possibility to bridge something here. Like, I mean, that could be nuts.
I'm over my head on that. I cannot sleep thinking about it. If I can make something happen, and hopefully I can make that very soon, this could change a lot of things, and hopefully for the positive. I do understand the risk in certain scenarios. I've been there. I've been in situations that are very risky, but I'm only hoping for the best. I'm not going with a negative mentality on this new adventure. Hopefully this can change a lot of things moving forward, and perhaps the photography and a reptile could potentially change relationships of two countries. And if that was the case, I'm done. There's nothing else for me to do, man. That would be the top. Yeah. Imagine that a reptile gave
world peace.
Right. That would be amazing.
Okay, for anyone out there thinking, what are the days, the amount of days that these adventures average? I mean, how many times? I mean, how is it for 2 weeks, or I mean, what's the average length of these trips?
So the average length is a week. I don't do it more than a week because I know the restrictions on work schedules. There's some that last longer. For example, Borneo. In Borneo, we're going 11 days plus 4 days of travel. So the people who are going there, they realize that. They're very aware. But for the most part, it's only 7 days of 6 nights, 5 nights, 6 days is usually what they last. It's something that almost everybody can do it. Again, there's multiple ways to offset the cost of a trip like this. You just got to be creative, find a ways to get sponsorships, product placements, bring in some cash, buy low, sell high when you come back from the States. All those work very well, offsetting the cost. So using the cost as an excuse not to go, I don't buy it, and I don't believe in it, because I've done it where I have paid fully for my cost by doing product placement, buying low, selling high, and paying for my trips. So it's something very doable. The only way to contact me right now is through Instagram and Facebook. I'm gonna work on the website pretty soon, so hopefully. Here's a plug-in, I guess. Maybe if you have a listener that can help me out building a website, maybe we can do a type of trade and come along, and I'll cover your costs or something. But I need help with a website for Jungle Diaries, and so that way there's a proper list of tours and dates so people can look at them. But if not, you can keep up with my Instagram page and see when the dates are. I'm finalizing the dates for 2023. Again, early in the year, we're going to go back to Peru, Costa Rica. But the countries that we have in mind is Spain, Morocco, Indonesia. It's multiple islands in Indonesia. Guatemala, Mexico, Ecuador, Colombia, Peru.
Mm-hmm.
I'm forgetting a few, but yeah. So if anybody's interested in travel with us, looking for animals, getting into some crazy adventures and situations, and just finding perhaps a different calling, come with us. I'm happy to take anybody who wants to join.
I'm a big green tree fan. Where can we go to go look at some green tree pythons if that's what I want to go? Yeah, so Papua, so like Sarong Island, or where will we go?
Yeah, so we will go to the side of Indonesia. I know that area a little better. So the island is divided in 2 countries. For me, it's easier on the Indonesian side just because of my contacts. And it's mostly the islands on the northwest of Papua, where you will find the green trees. It'll be an awesome thing to go and check them out. You can get a lot of field information, accurate field information.
That's what I want.
Better keep your animals based on your experience, something that nobody's going to tell you otherwise because you have been there.
I can't stand all these fucking wannabe know-it-alls, bro. Everyone's an expert. Everyone's an expert based off what they read off of Google or off a book. Fuck that.
Yeah,
I want to be there. I want to go there. I want to see
book on pythons. The people who wrote that book have never left. There's another book that really pissed me off. It was giant. Man, no, I can't say the title. It was about retics of Sulawesi. There's a population of.
You got to say that, dude, we have to create awareness. I don't want none of my followers or viewers to hear that. What book is it? I got to know.
Oh man, that can be controversial. Look, man,
we're good. You're in a good place.
I respect the people who have been doing this for longer than I have.
Of
course. I respect them because they have put in an effort to the best of their abilities. But I believe there's some missing information on some of their literature. There's one book called Giant Snakes of Sulawesi.
Okay.
And you're gonna look it up.
100%. Yeah, I'm listening. But what about this book?
Well, it does give a lot of good information and talks about the large animals in Sulawesi. But I came to find out that none of their authors have ever been there. It's like, they can't be talking from personal experience from Sulawesi if they haven't been there. So perhaps I'm just reading. Perhaps I'm just feeling this is incorrectly.
Right.
But I will give somebody credit if they have put the time to go and actually research, spend the time there, and then redact a book with personal information from them being there. And not just that book. There's multiple things that.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
But that's what I was saying that because as a keeper like you, it gives you that much more ability to now repeat information if you have actually experienced it and seen it firsthand. It's real information that you have experienced versus something that you read that could be wrong.
And like I said, man, like going back to the news and everything is just misleading. You know what I mean? There's so much misleading information. So it's nothing against the keeper. It's just so easy to get. It's easy to get caught up in a misleading position. So there's no better way than get yourself out there. I mean, that's why I love what you're doing, bro. You're spreading something that could really prolong not only what's happening in this industry, but the keepers, like people staying in this, because a lot of people. They don't want to just keep breeding. They need an escape. You know what I'm saying? And this could be a huge escape right here. So
yeah. Change could be very productive and lead to better things. So don't be afraid of it. And hopefully with a podcast like this, people can look into traveling and hopefully they can look into what I do and maybe even be part of it. I never been shy of the possibilities of doing things together with other people. I even told you to come along in one of the expeditions, but you were busy or something. So maybe next time you can come and do a podcast out there in the jungles.
Dude, hands down, Daniel, I am down. Here's the thing. I was actually in Canada, I think, when I travel. I do once a month. I travel for this show. So trust me, I would love to talk to you more about that maybe and plan that. I would love to do that. Round 2 in the jungle or wherever the fuck out in the countries there, man. I would love it.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we can work on. How long are this podcast? I feel like I've been talking too much.
We're almost. No, not at all. We have we have a wrap up question here. One last question, and then we get into hot seat questions. We're almost done. You know, that typically go 2 hours, especially if the guest is good. This is a really good podcast, so I appreciate your time, Daniel. Let's get into this last question here. Okay, so Daniel, you've worked with a lot of animals. You worked with a lot of different importations coming in, right? What's your opinion about another species making some sort of an impact on the industry, like the ball pythons? Like, do you feel like scrub pythons or something that normally people don't really work with could potentially be a big hot snake and a popular snake like the ball python someday?
And this is from a business side of things, or just
business, yeah,
business.
like production.
Things that usually become popular are, well, it's multiple reasons. How profitable, profitable they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, when reproducing them. If it's easy, if you get good numbers, and if it's easy to sell, that makes them popular. But there's other things, like look at animals that are becoming hard to get, and they enter CITES or can be banned from exportations. For example, super dwarfs. The number one reason why they became so popular and went up in price is because they stopped the importations of reticulated pythons, period. That immediately made them rare and desirable. So I will look into animals that could potentially be banned from being imported, okay? And you can talk to multiple people about that. So if you still are getting, for example, here's an example. I think the number one monitor in the world to keep, it's savannas. Savanna monitor is probably the best pet monitor you can get. The problem is we still get them imported by big numbers. So there's no captive breedings for that. The moment savannas become, you're not able to import them in the country anymore, savannas will be the number one lizard that can probably surpass bearded dragons and leopard geckos. Great personality, size, and somewhat easy to keep. So I will look into animals that will become hard to get in the States and look at that list and decide if it meets the criteria, easy to reproduce for the early waves of captive reproduction, size, manageable size, and personalities.
Mm-hmm.
Scrub pythons do meet some of those qualities, but not all. Some localities do grow big, and their personality sometimes can be questionable.
Right.
So if it doesn't meet all the criteria, I will say that perhaps scrub pythons are not going to be the new ball python. It's not to say that they're not going to be profitable. I think they are. They're awesome. I like them.
I fucking love them, yeah.
But I don't think it's what's going to compete with ball pythons. To this day, ball pythons are the number one because it meets everything.
Everything.
Yeah. Size, personality, the care, and how prolific they are when reproducing. For a business side of things, that's what you need. So looking as a whole, in general, I think once we get albino savanna monitors, melanistics, which, by the way, I had black savannas, and other color mutations, they're going to take over a good percentage of monitor sales. Captive breeding it's the solution of a lot of issues in the wild. So I think savanna monitors can do it. As far as snakes, it seems that the medium-sized animals, for example, Timor pythons, sabus, even boilines can grow bigger, but they're difficult to breed, so it doesn't meet the criteria.
Right.
So all those mid-sized pythons, those rough scales, Golans, all those have really good chance to make a name for themselves because they meet a lot of the criteria, which is size, temperament, or personalities, and how easy it is to care for them. And they can be prolific once we figure out how to breed them. So those animals, I see very good future on them. Green tree pythons, scroll pythons are there too, but I think their size can be a little, it could become not an issue, but it's definitely not for everybody. And
They're
besides,
big.
they have a very strong jaw and muscles on their head, so their bites can be a little scary sometimes. Not for the average keeper, for sure.
No.
But I think those mid-sized pythons will definitely be competing as well, right there with ball pythons.
Hell yeah, man. Well, listen, what an amazing 2 hours, bro. I appreciate this. We have hot seat questions before I let you leave. Okay, these are quick, Daniel. All right.
Okay.
Hot seat questions meaning no, don't take your time with the answer. The quicker the answer, the better. Okay. So you ready for these hot seat questions, Daniel?
I'll give it a try.
All right, here we go. Hot seat questions for Jungle Diaries coming in hot. Frozen thought or live?
Live.
8 cut or no 8 cut?
8 cut?
Yeah. Would you cut an egg or would you never cut an egg?
Cut them.
Okay. Red Chondro Neo or yellow Chondro Neo?
Ooh, man, red. I love red. Drives me crazy.
Pre-first shed meal or post-first shed meal?
Depending on the species, some species will have to eat before their first shed. So
I'll take
depending on the
that.
species.
So pre-first shed meal, you'll do it if you need to.
If they eat, yeah, it's
Okay.
whenever they eat.
Yay imports or boo imports?
Imports to create captive breeding programs. You have to get imports to create the captive breeding. So imports, it's a good thing on the right specifications.
Right. If you could import one reptile to your own personal collection anywhere around the world, what reptile would it be?
Somebody did it already. I don't know how. In California, you cannot keep venomous. You can, but it's very difficult. If I could, I will give anything that I have to have a spider tail viper from Iran.
Damn, you really love those, don't you?
I do, man. Evolutionary, the best animal there is, period.
It's like an alien snake.
It is.
What about one reptile nobody should ever import ever? Leave it alone. Don't touch it.
The large salties, now crocodiles, big black caimans. The amount of space that those animals cover in a day, it's impossible to replicate in captivity.
Wow.
Animals in zoos deserve a spot because we learn from them. But in regular public hands, these large animals cannot be properly set up unless you have millions and millions of dollars.
To spray or miss the snake or to not miss the snake? Like, would you mist it? Shh, or no?
Depending on the species, some animals require mist in the mornings to drink. They don't drink out of puddles. If they're up in the trees, they drink out of their scales. So misting is very, very useful depending on the animal.
Yay sports or boo sports?
Sports?
Yeah, like sports, football, baseball, basketball. You like
I
yay
used
or
to
no?
play a lot of soccer, but now older, more achy, reptiles.
Okay. Steak or fish?
I'm a carnivore, so steak.
Favorite cut of steak?
Ribeye.
Ribeye.
Rare. Seared. Not rare. Just raw.
Right. See, yeah. That's
if you
it.
leave it any longer, it's overdone. It's cooked.
Right.
So,
Okay. West Coast wrap or East Coast wrap?
West Coast. That's where it started.
Favorite West Coast rapper of all time?
Man, alive, I would say Snoop Dogg.
Relax. Oh, that's awesome. Little word association. First thing to come to mind: milk,
Eggs.
cocoa,
Hot.
FedEx shipping,
I mean, UPS, FedEx.
first time ball python breeder.
First time ball python breeder. What do you mean?
What do you think of it? It's a word association. What does that make you think of? What's the first thing you think of when you think of a ball python, first time ball python breeder?
Breeder, not keeper. Breeder is the key word there. A lot of mistakes, man. A lot of mistakes is what comes to mind.
Wow. Okay. Super Timors.
Ah! That That was bad, dude. Okay, so all right, that's just to piss people off. That's all I did it for. That wasn't. Whoa, yeah, you're gonna get people writing you for that. That's
I
your
love
fault.
it. I love it.
Yeah, I was just, over the years, you learn to laugh and not take things too serious, and the industry can be very serious sometimes, and that was my way of laughing and enjoying what I do. So it was just to make people uncomfortable, and I succeeded. So that's that.
All right, last one. If you had to get rid of one platform forever, delete it forever, is it going to be Facebook or Instagram? Which one needs to go?
I would say Facebook.
Yes, there you go. And dude, this guy's respected on Facebook heavily, and he still said Facebook. I love it. Daniel, we're all good. 2 hours in the books. What do you have to say to everyone who was tapping in? We had over 50 people at one point all here watching, hearing what you had to say. So what do you have to say to all your supporters out there?
Well, look into what you do. Take time and try to realize if it's what's making you happy. If it's not, don't be afraid of change. Not specifically in the reptile industry, but as a whole. Change is what got me here. If things would have been the same, I don't know what I would be doing. So don't be afraid of change. Risk, it's everything. Don't be afraid to risk at all. Sometimes it pays off, and for the good. So just keep an open mind. Change is awesome. There's a lot out there. All you need to do is travel a little more.
Well, man, this has been a very inspiring episode. Thank you for sitting here for 2 hours. I didn't mean to take 2 hours out of your Sunday, but I had to, man. This was great information. Definitely round 2 worthy, and definitely going to be round 2 in the jungle. I'm not fucking around. I'm going with your ass, man. We're going to do it, man. But listen, go enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I know you're busy. Thank you so much. It's a wrap for Jungle Diaries. Daniel Solis, ladies and gentlemen.
See ya.
All right, bro. Have a good night. Thank you so much.
All right, man. You too.
Peace out. What a guy, man. Amazing episode, full of information, full of knowledge. Definitely, I'm going to be re-listening to this tonight for sure. Appreciate everyone who tapped in, spent their Sunday here with us. Great info. Can't wait. Looking forward to doing some traveling with Daniel and his crew next year. It's going to be fun. I hope you guys are interested too. You guys know what to do. Head over to Instagram. Go give Jungle Diaries a follow and inquire, man. If this episode was inspiring and you wanted to get some traveling in, you already know who to get in contact with. That's Daniel Solis at Jungle Diaries. Guys, thank you so much. Again, enjoy the rest of your night. Shout to anyone who basically subscribed and spend the time here. Make sure you guys go give me a follow on Instagram, MJ Exotics Cartel with an A, not an E. Shout out to everyone who follows the Trap Talk with MJ podcast Instagram page as well. And then shout out to my Patreon members. Okay, shout out to anyone who's looking to get tapped in more than what they see on the podcast. Best way to do that is go down to the link below. Join the Trap Talk Patreon family. We are about to start our Trap Talk Zoom session here in less than fucking 3 minutes. I got to get going, man. So I got to go tap in with all my Patreon members. Patreon members, let's go. You know where the link's at. I'll see you guys in a few minutes. And again, thank you, Daniel Solis. And thank you, trappers out there, for spending your time here. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for Summer of Canova Reptiles. That's going to go down 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. But again, amazing episode. I'll catch you guys in a bit. Patreon members,